Hello everybody, how's it going? This is Patrick from Vicious Computers and welcome to a brand new product review. Today we're going to be doing a head-to-head style versus shootout between two similar but not quite identical products. The Ecoflow Trail 300 DC and the Anker SOLIX C300 DC. This is not a sponsored review. It was paid for with my own money for my own gadgets that I own and I get to use and abuse as I see fit. So with me putting money on the line, the first question is, why did I buy these? Really, it came from Facebook. I was on some of the pages for Ecoflow. I followed those groups. The Trail 300 DC just recently dropped, and the Ecoflow holics, they just love to buy the new products like they're collectibles. And everyone's raving about this new device. And I looked into it to see what it was all about. And I really initially wasn't impressed. I just didn't see what the desire was. It looked like an overpriced, overly glorified USB power bank. And I'm like, why would you buy that instead of just buying high capacity USB power banks? But I looked at it a little bit closer and then I saw a couple of differences that really do set it apart. One, it has a 12 volt accessory port, which I'm finding more uses now that I started doing solar projects around the house. I'm starting to have more 12 volt things. So that's handy. Two, it has a solar input on it. So if you're out camping or you're tailgating, you name it, having the ability to plug a solar panel into it to charge it is just pretty freaking cool. Now technically, since these charge through USB, you can buy solar panels and then terminate them into some sort of USB power delivery and charge any USB power bank by solar, just if you're thinking outside the box. But it's built right in here, so that's pretty cool. And lastly, something people might not think about, but this is maybe the most important thing of all for me, the battery technology. These are using LFP, the lithium iron phosphate batteries. They don't use the older lithium technology that has been known to be very dangerous, especially in smaller devices. Everything from cell phones to MP3 players to cars have gone up in flames because they have a thermal runaway with lithium technology, where once the battery for some reason fails, the heat it generates is high enough that it causes the battery to further fail, which causes more heat, and then it processes self-heating and it gets really bad really quick. Lithium iron phosphate batteries do not have thermal runaway, which makes them way safer. So I'm looking forward to replacing some of those older devices with something safer, because as we speak, my big USB power bank has a recall, and probably because it's a fire safety issue. So I decided to go ahead and look into buying one, and I started looking at the product pages and looking at the current prices. And one of the first things that I found was somebody saying, why would you buy the Ecoflow Trail 300 when you can buy the Anker SOLIX C300, which is essentially the same thing, but better in every single way. So sure enough, I then had to go look at the next product, the Anker SOLIX. And on paper, it pretty much looks to be the same in every single way. So right now, current price is $150 for the Anker SOLIX and Ecoflow $159. So, you know, prices, this is $10 cheaper, has the same power, has the same capacity. Up front, at a glance, they look the same. So what's different? And that's kind of, it was like, I don't think online is going to give me the true answer of which one's better, because I'm only going to see specs or people's personal bias. I'm going to buy both, and I'm going to test them, and I'm going to find out for myself. And that's where we're at today, and that's how we're going to start the review. Now, let's go over the full measurements on these. The Anker, like I said, 7.75 inches on the height, 4.75 on the width, 4.75 on the depth, which gives it a grand total of 174.8 cubic inches. Now that is compared to the Ecoflow, which has a height of 6.75 inches, a depth of 6.5 inches, and a width of 4.5 inches, which gives us a grand total of 197.4 cubic inches. So the Ecoflow unit is 15% larger in how much space that it actually occupies. The story changes up a little bit when we come to the weight. The Anker SOLIX comes in at 2,884 grams, while the Ecoflow comes in at 2,586 grams, which makes them exactly 11.5% away from each other. The Ecoflow is 11.5% larger and 11.5% lighter, funny enough. Now, when it comes to picking them up and carrying them somewhere, you won't notice the weight difference. But if you sit there and pick one up and put it down and then pick up the other one and put it down and do an A/B test, you can definitely notice the weight difference if you do it that way. But otherwise, not a big deal. So I'm pressing and holding. All right. Press. See, a single press doesn't do anything. Single press brings that one up. So better or worse, this one's going to turn on and off easier. This one requires more of a press and hold, which is a little bit more traditional, so it doesn't get turned on accidentally. USB-C, USB-C, 140 watts, 140 watts. USB-C, USB-C, 140 watts, 140 watts. That part's identical. Both of these USB-C ports are bidirectional, so you can charge these units with up to 280 watts through USB on these two ports, or you can send power out. So that's how you mainly charge these, other than of course the solar. Then you got a standard 12 watt USB-A, 12 watt USB-A, and then our solar. Over here though, we got extra. We have a third USB-C. These two are the bidirectional 140s. This one is only a single direction at 100 watts, but that's still really nice to have that. Then you've got another USB-C here, and that one's only for 15 watts. And then you've got your two USB-As, which aren't listed on their output here on the unit. I'm assuming it's probably exactly the same. I'll double check later. One thing that's an interesting choice here is that they have a cover for the 12 volt socket here, which I think is appropriate. I have no idea why they decided to not put one on that unit. That's probably like my only gripe. I just don't think it should be uncovered. When it comes to turning on everything, right? So the unit comes on here, and then this button down there is what's turning on the 12 volt accessory. Here you've got the unit coming on, you got the light with multiple brightnesses. This is going to be like your Bluetooth app connection button, and then you have a button for your 12 volt as well. What we're doing now, we're kind of moving on to the next part of our review. I'm discharging these again, so we're yet again running the batteries down. This one's down to 89%. This one will follow. We gotta discharge it. The reason why is the next thing we're testing is the solar inputs. We need to recharge these through solar, and I need to drain the battery to do that. All right, so the Ecoflow is still draining the battery down for its solar input test. We got the Anker down to 77%, and got our rig hooked up with the power supply, and now it's time to start testing it out. So again, this one says it does 11 to 28 volts. Right now I've got this set for 27 volts and 6 amps, which should max out the solar, and we're just gonna kick it on and see what happens to get started. So I got 16 watts, 91 watts. So with 27 volts, we're pushing out 3.7 amps at 100 watts. So we're pushing out exactly 100 watts of power from the power supply. It's pulling 91 watts of power into the system. So we're losing about 10 watts of power through the transfer. Let's try a couple different parameters. 20 volts, 8 amps. So now we lowered the voltage. We're pushing 5 amps out, 101 watts. We've got 96 watts of power coming in. So it looks like it prefers a slightly lower voltage, which is good because 20 volts, I know that's actually very near what my panels outside, my little 200 watt panels, they push out about this much voltage. So it looks like, you know, we're capping. Let's see what the max amps are. Let's keep lowering the voltage until I can only go up to 8 amps on this, but let's try that out. 10 volts, 8 amps. So with only 10 volts, we're not going to be able to trigger it. It says 11 to 28, and sure enough, 10 volts isn't triggering it, so you have to get that minimum. So that'll be interesting because over here, this one says on the Ecoflow, it will take 10 volts. So that's We're not getting anything out of 10. Let's try 11. All right, 11 volts, 8 amps. Yep, it's working. Let's see what we get out of it. 11 volts, 8 amps, pushing out 87 watts of power, and we're getting 80 watts into the unit. So I guess the only thing left is to go to 29 volts and see if it pops some kind of protection on it. So let's do that real quick. All right, 29 volts. It took it. 29 volts, 3.5 amps, 100 watts of power going out. We're at 93 watts on the unit there. So it looks like it can take a slight overvoltage without immediately popping a protection. I'm assuming if we kicked up the voltage higher, or maybe even run it for an extended time, it would. So I'm not going to push it that hard because it's not a sponsored unit, it's my own money. If it was a sponsored unit, like if it was given to me for free, then I would absolutely go for it and blow the thing up. But that's that. So we'll come back in just a little while with the Ecoflow. Actually, 86%. Yeah, we can go ahead and do it now. Let's do it now. We're pushing 10 volts to 8 amps. Let's see what happens. So remember, 10 volts did not trigger the Solix. It really was true to what it said, where it says it requires 11 volts to charge. So 10 didn't start it, but 10 did start this. We're able to push 7.5 amps to it. So it looks like the maximum, oh, it just jumped up to 8 briefly. So 80 watts, we're pushing the full power. How much are we getting on here? 75 watts. Okay, let's go ahead and go for more of a maximum figure. So 27 volts, 6 amps. And sure enough, we're able to get that extra power. So 27 volts, 4.2 amps, 110 watts or so. Over here, we can see 111 watts. So yeah, the MPPT range is not very different, but it is greater on the Ecoflow. It can charge with a slightly lower voltage, and it can charge with more wattage. It has 110 watts of power, right now marking as 113, it's jumping to 116, so it should be settling close to that 110 watts, which is more power that you can get through this one. So if you are exclusively charging on solar, this one would be slightly better. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, and real quick, I just want to show you guys a little bit of an extra charging bonus section. Remember I said we have charging on 2 ports. So right now I plugged in one cell phone charger. We're getting 95 watts from it. Oh, look at that. On camera. Oh man. Did you see that, guys? That just said overload. Charging just stopped. And it said overload. And it just did it again. Overload. Oh no. Well, this was not staged. But let me explain something I haven't spoken about yet. It's on a couple of my clips I recorded before I really started sitting down to do the main review. But when I was doing the discharge and recharge of both these units, I'd give them both a full discharge and recharge to 100% twice before I did the capacity test to make sure that the cells were where they should be. The very first thing that the Ecoflow did was it went to an overload protection when I jumped straight to a 100-watt draw. I had to slowly raise the draw up, otherwise it would go overload. I just now, for the first time, plugged in my 100-watt phone charger, which is what I use to run like my soldering iron and some other stuff. It is constantly over and over and over jumping to an overload state. That's not okay. That's definitely not. This is a brand new charger. It's a nice high-end charger and it's working perfectly fine. It's not sending more than 100 watts. Let's just see if it happens again. Let me, while it's sitting and doing overload. All right, let me talk about the test I was going to show you. I wanted to show you how when you plug in one phone charger, it charges at rates of whatever. Then you plug in a second charger and you'll see the additional charging. The first thing I wanted to do is compare both of them with the exact same 2 phone chargers and see if they're both collecting the same amount of power. However, with the overload happening, I really can't do that test with this. And then we were going to plug the solar back in and then run solar and see if these units are capable of charging from both USBs and solar at the same time to find the fastest way to charge these. But this just keeps going into overload. So I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to not use the 100-watt powerful charger. We're going to downgrade that to the wimpy little Ecoflow charger. All right, that's in there. So the first charger, let's let it settle. This is the Ecoflow charger. It's a 30-watt charger. It's pulling 29 watts. Let's plug in the other charger. See it jump up. And then it just jumped up. It's now at 53 watts. And we know that we can get a little over 100 from the solar. So if we have 53 right now, the question is it going to go to like 150 once we put the solar on? And the answer is no. You can see that we're pushing 0.049 amps through solar, which means basically solar is not being accepted by the unit when we're charging on USB. So no difference here. Let's see if we unplug one of the USBs, if it'll work with just one of them plugged in. And the answer is no, only 30 watts. And the sanity check ourselves. Let's unplug everything and only put solar on. There it goes. It's taking the solar. And we'll plug this back in after the fact and see what happens. So it's jumping up. It's at 107 watts, 115 watts. Plug in USB. And it dropped down to 0. So it cannot simultaneously do USB and solar charging. And if you try doing both, it takes preference to the USB and it completely stops the solar. Let's see if we have the same behavior with the Anker. So let's plug in our solar. Let's plug in our first. This should give us about 40 watts, or I'm sorry, 30 watts. So there's 28 watts on there. Plug in the second charger. And it jumped up, now it's at 50 watts. And let's kick on the solar. Oh, look at that, guys. 27 volts, 3.7 amps, 100 watts of power, 142 watts. I just discovered this on camera. I'm sorry, but that immediately, besides the overload issues that the Ecoflow had, that feature alone absolutely sets the Anker SOLIX apart. You can do quick charging on all 3 ports at the same time. This is 140 watts of power that's charging into this unit right now. So even though that does have a slightly higher solar input, it doesn't matter when I can charge by USB and solar on this one at the same time. And you can even get, I don't have it here at the table, but I have baby solar panels that are directly wired to USB for like charging your cell phones. So you could plug those into the USB ports and actually have higher solar input on this. So yeah, we're pulling a steady 142 watts right now. It just jumped up to 143. Right there, 100 watts of power. That's crazy. That's a big thing to find during the review. I'm glad that we discovered that. So yeah, it's kind of time to take this evidence and come up to do our conclusions on the review.
All right, it's getting late. As you can see, it's dark outside, and it's time to start bringing things to a close. We've got a lot of compelling evidence here to make a conclusion. The original idea of the head-to-head comparison was not to pick a winner. It was to just show you each unit truthfully and transparently and let you pick for yourself which one you prefer. But with everything that has happened so far during the testing, unfortunately, it's changed that. The person that said, why would you get the Ecoflow when you have the Anker, ended up being very correct. So far, every single thing that the Ecoflow can do, the Anker can do, or it can do it better.
with the very mild exception of the slight different solar charging capabilities. But I think it makes up for it with the fact that it does dual charging. And that's where I wanted to go back and talk about the size and weight. It's crazy that the Anker is smaller, but when we were wondering why it was heavier, now it makes sense. I bet there's some extra stuff in there besides just the light and the extra USB ports. I'm willing to bet that there's also maybe some additional electronics in there for charging. And somehow the Ecoflow might be sharing that charging capability, and that's why we don't have dual charging, but the Anker has dual charging capable because it has two separate pieces of component in there. Just a hypothesis, I don't know. But real quick, let's go and show you what it looks like if you connect the Anker to your phone. I did a little video of just opening up the app on my phone. It's very basic but functional. So you get a nice little screen that shows you what your current state of charge is and temperature, and it's a graphic. We have our major settings up there. Total input, total output, our port status, the car charger output, which would be the 12 volt there. You can turn that on and off and it shows you a readout. Let's go ahead and just play the video here. So it's animated graphic. It'll tell you that the status is green for on, and if it's not green, it's not on. You can turn the car charger on or off, and you can also set a timer to automatically have it turn off. You have the lights, brightness controls down here, so you can do low, medium, and high, and then turn it off. You can have the screen, the heads-up display of the actual unit. You can permanently turn the screen on or off with that button down there. And then you dive into the settings where you can set device timeout. We have the savings mode where it'll automatically put the unit in an off state once it's in a low power mode for a while. Screen brightness, screen timeout, our Wi-Fi, and other things. So, and you have firmware updates, which is also nice. So yeah, that's the software. And without the difference in that, let's talk about the capacity test. So capacity test actually ended up being ridiculously close. The Anker came in at 14,028 milliamp hours, and then the Delta came in at 14,002 milliamp hours. So that was two full charges, 2 full discharges, charge back up, let it sit for a few hours to let the surface charge dissipate, and then a direct capacity test under the same conditions with less than a 1C discharge rate, and they got pretty much head to head. So I bet these cells inside are identical pretty much. So with capacity being the same, the input and output for your main USB ports being the same, but then you have all those extra features of the Anker, then yeah, I'm going to say, you know, definitely get what you want. If you prefer Ecoflow, I would say, you know, one reason you might stay with Ecoflow is because you're in their ecosystem and you want everything in the same app. I get it. It's one reason I hate being in an ecosystem, but I get it. But since this doesn't even have app connectivity, I don't really think that's a good. I don't want to use the word excuse. I don't think it's a good reason. But if you choose to, it's still your money and you have that choice. But for me, the Anker is definitely the superior product. And as a matter of fact, I might call up Ecoflow and see if they'll let me do a return, because with mine doing the over voltage, or not over voltage, but overload warning, both with discharging and charging, that has me a little bit concerned about just how reliable the unit might be as well. So maybe I just got a flaky unit with bad quality control, or maybe that's just how it is. So anyways, I hope everyone enjoyed the review. It's been a while since I've done a good thorough review. It makes me feel good in my heart and soul to get back to doing this. As you can tell, I kind of did it as fast as I could. Didn't even bother getting dressed up for the camera. This is literally the same clothes I was doing yard work in, and I came in and I got to it and I got it done. So I hope you appreciate the effort that was put into it. Remember, you can say thank you by leaving a comment, liking the video, subscribing. And if you do decide to purchase anything that I have an affiliate link for, then use the affiliate links. That helps out. If I don't have affiliate links, then I'll use the regular links, because it's not about what I get out of it. It's about what you get out of it. So everyone, thank you for watching the video. This was Patrick from Vicious Computers, and I'll see you next time.